great success because the Lord was with him. When Saul saw how successful he was afraid of him. And from that point, things started to escalate quickly. What I find odd is it says in this last passage that Saul was afraid of David. He knew that the Lord had left him and was putting his favor with David. And he saw this, but he still pursued to kill David. His jealousy and his rage against David still went on. And at that point, you're basically knowing that. And Saul had been in God's favor earlier, so he knows what that is like. He's setting himself up directly as an enemy of God, knowing that the favor was with David, but he still pursues it. He would send him into these battles, thinking that the Philistines would do the job for him, but the more he did it, the more successful David became. And after these attempts to kill him, things became more and more intense, and eventually David just had to run. Go into hiding from Saul, his army, his men that were after him. He had to leave his wife, he had to leave his home. His wife at the time was one that helped delay the soldiers that were coming for him so he could escape. So he gets out with little to no supplies to go into hiding while having Saul and his men in pursuit. This is stressful. So going back to the question, what did David do to deserve this? Nothing. Reading earlier parts of Samuel and just knowing of David's life up to this point, he was obedient, he was loyal, he was humble, a man after God's own heart. Yet he still had to go through these problems. He would spend time in the desert, he would spend time hiding in caves, not really able to go anywhere because he was wanted. The king wanted him. As time went by, more and more people knew that Saul was looking for him. There were some men that had joined David. These were mostly the disenfranchised, the outcasts of society that would follow with David. But you still end up, when you're on the run, you have a lot of time alone, a lot of time to think about what was going on. Not a lot of food, not much in supplies. Confused, fearful, unsure what's going on, not knowing what was going to happen, worried about the future, frustrated, possibly angry at times, and overwhelmed, wondering if God was listening to him or even cared. And these are all things that we've felt. These are all things that we go through, have gone through. If you haven't, you will. And looking to the Psalms, we can see how David feels in his time of trouble. In Psalm 57, it says, I cry out to God Most High, to God who fulfills his purpose for me. He sends from heaven and saves me, rebuking those who hotly pursue me. David recognizes in this psalm that God has a purpose. Who fulfills his purpose for me? Regardless of how he feels, he knows that God is going to have this purpose. And to get a complete feel for what David is going through, what he's thinking about, we would have to actually go through Psalm 34, Psalm 57, and 142. I'm mainly going to go into 142, which I think kind of covers the despair that David has. It says, Psalm 142, a maskil of David when he was in the cave of prayer. He says, I cry aloud to the Lord. I lift my voice to the Lord for mercy. I pour out my complaint before him, before I tell him my trouble. He's putting it out there right off the bat. I am going to pour out my complaints for my situation. I do not like what is going on right now. Do you not know about my pain? Do you not know about my trouble? When my spirit grows faint within me, it is you who know my way. In the path where I walk, men have hidden a snare for me. Look to my right and see, no one is concerned for me. I have no refuge, and no one cares for my life. I cry to you, Lord. I say, you are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. Listen to my cry, for I am in desperate need. Rescue me from those who pursue me, for they are way too strong for me. Set me free from this prison, that I may praise your name. Then the righteous will gather about me because of your goodness to me. Look what David's going through. No one cares. No one cares for my life. I have no refuge. I want to worship you, so I want to praise your name, but you have to release me from this prison so that I can praise your name. And when you release me, people will see your goodness to me, and I will praise you all the more. As I was going through this, I was just looking at David's situation, thinking, how long did David have to deal with this? So I started doing a little research, trying to follow different commentaries and different things, and the answer is nobody really knows. There's no definitive answer on how long this actually went about, other than putting other dates and different things that happened and trying to guess ages. David was anointed by Samuel when he was 20-ish, give or take. A lot of these things are ish. He was made king over Israel when he was around 30. So there's a span of about 10 years there. The shortest that I saw on somebody's speculation was 18 months to 2 years, up to possibly 10 years that David was having to deal with this. And even at 2 years, that still seems like an eternity. And we all know that when we're going through problems and situations, when it doesn't look like it's going to end, and it's I have no refuge, no one cares for my life, my spirit grows faint. Release me from this prison. What David wants to do is ultimately he wants to worship. He wants to praise the Lord, but he's got this pain, he's got this weight on him. And there are ups and downs when we're going through a rough time, and we have to look for that reason, for that purpose, as David says in Psalm 57, I cry out to God Most High, to God who fulfills his purpose for me. The things that we need to look at, things to think about, things to consider, look for when we're in the cave, as David, that this Psalm 142 was written in a cave while he was hiding in the caves. Very desperate time for David. But we need to know and look for that God is showing us that we need him. Regardless whether this is a long-term problem, a short-term problem, God is going to show us that we need him. We have to rely on him. He is ultimately going to be our refuge. And at any point, any problems, we're going to have to realize that we need God. That's what he wants us, and he's going to show us that. It's kind of one of those, whether you like it or not. He's going to show you that you need him. This is a lesson that we have to learn through any situation. Trying not to take it on ourselves and get beyond our pride, get beyond our, I can handle this, and that's what happened with Saul. We saw that earlier on with Saul when he had God's favor, he lost it because he was going to do it himself. And getting ahead of God and doing his own thing is what lost Saul God's favor. As we go through our trials, it's going to give us focus. We need to look for that. What things will seem less important, the trivial things in our lives that we thought were so terrible, will start to seem a little less and seem to fade into the background when we're facing a true trial or situation. We need to focus on what is real. And a lot of the times, it's our relationship to God. That's what the problem is. Our relationship to him is not what it should be. That's why he's trying to show us that we need him. Priorities can be more clear at this time, and what we thought was important isn't. we're going through these times when we're praying, as David is doing, crying out to God, we start to see God's provision and how he's going to take care of us. We see his protection. There was many times that Saul could have caught David. He could have got him when they were in the palace and got pinned to the wall right off the bat. And we're going to notice God's presence because we're going to be seeking him when we need him. And the more that we focus on God, the more that we focus on our relationship with him, we'll see how much he means to us. And when we don't do these things, when we don't see this, and we try to control everything ourselves, this is where the problems will get worse and more intense. This is a time that we need to be honest with God. To lay the problems out. David says here, I'm going to pour out my complaint list. I'm going to tell you how I feel about this. I'm going to tell you what I don't like and why. You're in a situation like this, David has got nothing to lose at this point. I'm just going to tell you everything. We need to tell God our situation, tell him what we're going through. When we're in a time of trouble, we don't need to be holding back. And this is not a time to be religious. This is not a time to be spiritual and putting our prayers out there like the King James. No thous, these, and therefores in our prayers. We need to just lay it out there and tell God what we're thinking. And ask him, what am I supposed to learn from this? What am I supposed to get out of this? What am I missing that you're showing me? And realize that God will be glorified regardless. Whatever the situation is, he will be glorified. Psalm 57 says, be exalted, O God, above the heavens, and let your glory be above all the earth. In these trials and the situation, David was getting locked in on God. He was getting focused on the Lord. His obedience. It says, my heart is steadfast, O God. And we need to learn to be able to praise him, to be able to worship him. Worship him in the storm. We didn't do that song tonight. As we were up here, like, we could do that song, we could do that song. But there are so many that just teach us to praise God regardless. To lift up his name regardless of what we're going through. To sing to him and remembering who he is in his power, in his strength, in his love. Remember all of his attributes and character and how much he loves us regardless of what we're going through. And that what we're going through is a reason and a purpose to draw us closer to him, to remind us we need him. We all have problems. We all have situations. He doesn't change. Regardless of how we feel, regardless of what we think about God when we're going through situations, he does not change. He has never changed. The God that brought David through this situation is the same one that we cry out to now. And tough times make us or break us. That's what they're there for. They make us or break us. We can turn to God, we can latch onto him, or we can turn away from him. I've known people that you would think they've been in church their whole lives and something goes wrong and they turn on, why would he do this to me? Why would he allow this to happen? And you've all heard the story. Why would a loving God allow this to happen? It's a broken world with broken people. Bad things are going to happen. What are we going to do? Turn to God or turn away from him? Are we going to walk in the light? Or are we going to walk in darkness? Romans 8, referring back to actually the Psalm 57. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who've been called according to his purpose. He has a purpose. David mentioned that. We don't always know what it is. We can't always see what it is. But we must remember that God will be glorified. In John 6, Jesus asking them, are you going to leave too? They'd already gone through a situation. Everybody was walking out on Jesus. teaching was too hard. Peter responds, Lord, to whom shall we go? Are we willing to latch on to God regardless of the situation, regardless of our problem? Are we willing to just latch on? Not let go regardless of the situation. David held on to the Lord. He worshiped. David was loyal. He was obedient. He was humble. He worshiped. He relied on God. These are the things that we need to be able to do through these problems, through these troubles, through these situations that we're going to go through. It's inevitable. We'll be loyal, obedient, humble. Will we worship Him? To latch onto this. We need to go through problems. We're going to go through problems. It's just a matter of how are we going to handle it? What are we going to do when we're there? Cry out to God. Be honest. Be real with Him. Don't try to be, I'm going to take care of this. I can do this. I'll need your help in this area, but I'll get, and no, that's not what He wants. He's going to remind us we need Him. And the more we try to do that, the more He's going to show us, you need me. As we come to a time of communion, is there any area in our lives where we've maybe pushed God back or we've tried to take control of it, where He's trying to show us, you need me? It doesn't have to be somebody chasing you, trying to kill you. I don't know anybody that's ever said, man, they're really trying to kill me. But we all have to go through problems. We all have situations. And they're all at different levels. And all of these problems are there for a reason. We need Him. To need Him. And to draw us closer to Him. He has that purpose. And this time when we come into communion, we need to bring that to Him. Be honest. Lord, I'm going to lay out my complaints right now. I'm going to tell you what I feel. But what am I supposed to learn? What am I supposed to get from this? What am I missing in this situation? Let's pray to communion. Father, we thank You that You love us. We know that we are going to go through problems. We know that we are in a broken world with broken people. And we just ask that You would help us to have our eyes open to Your glory, to know that You are with us, to know that we can rely on us. You are our refuge. God, help us to be aware of Your presence and Your glory, no matter what we are going through. We thank You for the salvation and the love that You give us through Your Son. And it's in His name we pray. Amen. you stand and lift up your voices and we continue to worship the Lord.
Do